Welcome to the Whole Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you become a fat burner, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey, everybody. It's Debbie Potts with my favorite podcast friend, Jimmy Moore, the man, the founder of podcasts, Low-Carb, Keto, Carnivore, Cruising. And he is live with me today. How are you?
Hey, what's up, Debbie?
I am so good to finally talk to you because I've been wanting to talk to you for months. And
you've been harassing me for months, that's for sure.
I know. Well, this is obviously, you know me, my favorite topic and what happened to me with chronic stress. And my listeners know we talk a lot about how chronic stress impacts the whole you, including your ability to burn fat, optimize your health, your mitochondria, and just performance in daily life. And I've watched you over the years and really have observed a lot of changes and ups and downs. And you are doing something in, what'd you say, a week?
Yep.
1 week to go as we record this. That's very inspirational, motivational, and something I think it will create a lot of impact around the world. So Jimmy, why don't you kind of talk about what you've been talking about last few months and to our listeners, kind of update them on what's going on with Jimmy Moore.
Yeah, so I've been at the health promotion, nutrition advocacy thing for pretty much nonstop, Debbie, 15 years in a row. And sometimes I think back and go, dang, it feels like 15 years, but in other ways, it feels like I just got started. And I've been highly successful in recent years, writing some of the seminal books in keto and fasting and just finding such success in helping people. But what I've come to the conclusion of is when you're successful and a leader, you actually sacrifice a little bit of your own health. And it's ironic, being a health leader is not healthy. And so I've become more and more convinced that I needed to do something big to help make sure I balance myself stress-wise, making sure that all the things in my own health are in order so I can do this for decades longer. And so I've made the decision to go away for 6 months, which is unprecedented in the health space. I don't think anybody else has ever done this before, at least not publicly like I'm doing it, as a means of de-stressing. And literally from the time you saw me on the low-carb keto cruise to now, I've lost 40 pounds just by slowing down. And so I'm already seeing the profound impact of de-stressing, which is and has always been since I've known you, a pretty major theme of Debbie Potts. So I'm really happy to be talking to you about this today.
Well, I'm so proud of you. And what I share all the time and wrote in my book, Life is Not a Race, is that we have to learn how to put the oxygen mask on first, so to speak. And we as health coaches and leaders in helping others and your educator, that we forget to take care of ourselves. And it's just like a mom taking care of her kids. And you just worry about everybody else and trying to make everybody else happy. But really, you know, I would say you have to figure out how to make yourself healthy and happy and take care of you before you can help other people. And we so often, as you said, sacrifice our own well-being to help the world, as you've been doing since you started. So what are some of the big lessons you've learned since that led up to making this decision? What are some of the lessons you learned and your triggers or red flags that you're living life as a race, your chronic stressors are accumulating?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that when you're in the day-to-day-ism and you don't slow down to take stock and observe, that you don't notice them. It's only in the slowing down that, Debbie, I wish I'd slowed down years ago now, because I've had such a depth of self-awareness happening with the slowing down that thoughts that have been there but I've never heard before are starting to come out. And you got a little bit of it when you saw my talk on the low-carb cruise. That was kind of the genesis of it all, of all that kind of stuff coming out. And I don't think most people that live in their day-to-dayism of their lives, people listening right now, there's no way that you truly know what's going on if you've never consciously made an effort to try to listen. And so I'm hoping that my story here today at least gets people to go, whoa, I can stop for an hour in the day and say, all right, how am I? Where am I? What am I doing? What could I do differently that would make my life better? Where are there areas of unresolved stress that I hadn't even thought about because I didn't stop to think and give credence to it? None of us would purposely put chocolate cake in our mouth. Why? Because we consciously are making better choices nutritionally. Well, every single time you allow stress that's not resolved in your life to stay there, you might as well be eating chocolate cake. So that's and stress spelled backwards is desserts. So you're eating desserts and you don't even know it. And it's amazing that this is one area of health that is so taboo, people don't even think about it. And then they wonder, why do I stall in weight loss? Why do I still feel bad? Why do I have a chronic pain in my body? It's not for no good reason. And I think stress is the missing component.
And that's why I'm doing this full time starting in October to coach people on this, because I find it an epidemic, right? And it's just, you start to stop and pay attention to observing everybody, including your own self, and you realize, oh my gosh, we are multitasking. We're addicted to computer, email, social media. We're always doing something. We lose touch with how we actually feel, as you said. And I think so much of that is until you stop, and I say pause and reboot or recalibrate the whole you from the inside out, we don't know those red flags, because people ask me that all the time when I'm interviewed about what happened to me in 2013. It's like, well, I don't know. I felt amazing. Well, that's because my cortisol was high, and I was for years living like I was a superhero, invincible, and feeling super strong. So you don't know when your HPA axis is starting to get out of whack because your cortisol is high. So you feel amazing. So you don't really know, and you lose touch with how you're feeling, as you said, because we're just so sympathetic, dominant nervous system, in fight or flight almost, right? Is that kind of what you felt like you were just on all the time?
Oh, yeah. And what's funny is, like, when I go to the low-carb cruise or Keto Con or one of these other festivals that I'm known out, and I just got back from one in Canada, and I emceed the event, and people don't realize, for someone to be like readily available to always be the person that people know them, that's a lot of mental, emotional, and physical energy that has to be like worked up to be on like that all the time. And that parasympathetic state goes out the window. It goes right to sympathetic, even though it's a pleasurable thing to be around people. You got this a little bit on the cruise this year. You had to be on, and people wanted to talk to the lady that had the big muscles. And, you constantly have to be on, and that doesn't come without some physical and emotional response in.
Yeah. So as I'm finishing this fall to be what's called FDN practitioner, so I can order those functional labs and investigate what they call metabolic chaos, which is, this adrenal issues, stress response, our HPA axis dysregulation. But it's those external stresses, as you're talking about, emotional, physical, they accumulate. And what we learned in nutritional therapy is that you have that beaker of stress, and it doesn't matter what it is. It just, too much of anything goes in that beaker, and your brain just interprets them all as threats or emergencies. So we end up being under that emergency mode for all day long. And I think so many of us live that way, but then we also don't know about these internal hidden stressors that impact your hormones, your immune, your detoxification, digestion, energy, and nervous system. That we've talked a lot about this, is that you've done all these labs, you've done all these food challenges and fasting that you still didn't lose fat weight, and people, give you crap. But you're a great example. As you said, you lost 40 pounds since you started to slow down and pay attention to taking care of the whole you. And I think that's the big thing, that lesson you're sharing with people, is that you can be low carb, keto, carnivore, and have amazing labs, and maybe not so amazing labs, until you start to work on your stressors externally as well as internally. So what have you found for yourself? As you said, you lost 40 pounds, you've paying attention more so, and you lost weight. So what do you think is a big lesson learned to share to the world, that how stress impacts your ability to burn fat?
Oh my gosh, Debbie, this is so important.
Yes.
Because I think in this health space, and especially the nutritional health space, we put a lot of emphasis on nutrition. And don't get me wrong, I think nutrition is the foundation by which that health can happen. But it's not the be all end all. And if there's anything that I hope I see happen in the keto, carnivore, general health space, more than anything, is let's get away from thinking diet is the end game. Diet is the beginning. It's all these other things. Like right now, I'm talking to you literally sitting in a massage chair because
Perfect.
I want to chill. I'm trying to learn, even multitasking, doing a podcast with a good friend. I'm trying to live what I'm talking about. And if we do things that put us in a more relaxed state, that's going to benefit our health just as much as making sure we're not putting sugar in our body. And I don't think people see the self-care aspect in a positive light. They almost think self-care is selfish. And I'm here to tell you, self-care is about the most unselfish thing you could possibly do, not just for yourself, but all those people that rely on you in their lives, wives, husbands, kids, grandparents, all these people that rely on you. If you're not around because you became so absorbed in everything that made you stressed, and then you die early from it, you're not doing them any good. So I'm becoming more and more aware self-care is unselfish, and it's about the most unselfish thing you can do.
And what are you doing to, like, specific things you've changed this year to eliminate those stressors that that are triggers, and to how you're doing that, to how you are taking care of yourself?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. And for me, a lot of the stress that's happened I'm a workaholic. I just love to be busy, and I'm learning, Debbie, that craving, that addiction, I'm going to call it, to working and working hard is doing more harm than good. Even though the work that I'm doing, the actual work, I do 5 podcasts a week right now, that runs pretty much every single day. How could that not have a negative effect on my health? Mm-hmm. And yet what I'm doing is work that's helping people. And so balancing that, what's the proper amount of work that still makes an impact, but then doesn't burn my adrenals out and stretch me too thin. So that's a lesson I'm still trying to work on and work through. Also being very deliberate with the way people interact with you online. There's a lot of negativity that I get online, not just me, but anybody that's a health leader is going to get some negativity, and that doesn't come without consequences if you dwell on it. So I'm learning to let those kind of things go a little more. All this is a work in progress, and literally just kind of being mindful of having those moments where you're purposely trying to de-stress. So I've got a infrared sauna I go into, and I can chill from that. I've got red light therapy I'm in this massage chair. I'm going to do some targeted high intensity interval training to try to bring stress down that way. It's just being active and doing something is better than thinking it's not a problem and never doing anything.
Mm-hmm. I think there's that addiction to busyness is pretty common. And I think a lot of that has gotten more of impact on people's health is social media and this addiction to multitasking and the impacts on our brain. If you look at, that we're programming our brain neuroplasticity to do 10 things at once. And we're so able to focus on just doing one thing at a time. And I think that's a big problem or area of opportunity for most of us, and how to just focus and not be always kind of ADD on everything and distractions, multitasking. And we're talking about squirrels, those distractions and Apple Watches, as we talked about on the cruise, that, I'm training someone and they have a watch and then there's a beep and they just lost their attention. They're not paying attention to me anymore.
That's right.
I think there's a lot of that, but it's what you said is what I've found a lot of times is we feel guilty if we're not doing something. And you feel, a lot of us that are that type A overachievers, you feel lazy if you're not being productive. But I think what you're learning through your journey, it sounds to me that taking a break to massage your back in a chair or sit in the infrared sauna or do the cold plunge, cold therapy, is that not to feel guilty about it. Know that it's okay to take care of yourself. It's just as important as recording a podcast.
Yes, exactly. And it means if I come back and have to eliminate a podcast or two in order to be able to fit in that time to take care of me, then so be it. In fact, I've already made the decision now, even before I come back, I'm retiring 2 of those podcasts. So that's my beginning of being proactive about being serious about this. So eliminating 2 of those podcasts will free up time to commit to myself and doing the things I got to do to be healthy.
So you're already finding solutions to change your lifestyle and your work schedule to keep yourself healthy, as you'll learn so much about yourself in the next 6 months, which, by the way, will go by super fast. You just think how fast it's been since our cruise, that time goes by so fast, and not being afraid of what's going to happen next, but know that, life's going to be even better for you after 6 months.
Yeah, I was doing it the other day. We go away with some friends next weekend when this all starts. We're with them for 2 weeks. We come back and Christine and I are going to live in the mountains. I'm going to take a lot of nature walks and just think and ponder and relax in the woods and do a lot of kind of these biohacks I was talking about. Come back in late November and go visit some family, come back for the holidays, go to Israel in the turn of the year, and 6 weeks later I'm back. So it's nothing, when you kind of like walk it through in your head, you're like, well, that's really not long at all.
Yeah, you might want a year.
Yeah, and we talked about that on the cruise. One of our attendees, when I was doing the Q&A during my talk, said that very thing, and she's a therapist, and she said, you're setting an arbitrary number of 6 months, but if you go through 6 months and that's not enough, then please stay away. And it really put it on my radar screen that I'm not going to rush this. Now, some people have said, well, what if you feel better at 3 months? Why are you coming back? I'm like, no, it's at least 6 months. And again, I think it's just the whole idea of why rush this process? This is a process that could, quite frankly, add 15 to 20 years at the end of my life. Just being away for 6 months or a month or a year or whatever it's going to be, this could be something that propels me to have more years to do the things that I love.
Well, and that's what I talk about almost every time I record a podcast by myself, is performance and longevity. We put all this stress on our body, especially those who are doing endurance sports. It's even worse for you. And someone told me yesterday, endurance athletes and vegans have the most chronic stress they're putting on their body because our nutrient deficiencies. And it's just more important to look at what you want to be doing when you're 80 years old. Do you want to be decrepit, hunched over, not be able to get up out of a chair because you killed your body from whatever stressors, or do you want to be traveling the world? So I think it's, taking the fear out of it, not being afraid to take those 6 months off. So are you getting through some of those fears that you had, that you've, being gone, thinking no one will remember you and no one's going to listen to your podcast again?
Well, and I didn't really believe that, but it's like that's the stuff that pops in your head. Will you be quickly forgotten? No, I never really believed that, but it's hard not to think those thoughts, I guess, when the reality of this sets in. And here we are a week away. No, I'm extremely at peace about this. I'm actually like, I'm wishing it tomorrow was the end of it because I was ready to go. And so, yeah, I am less terrified than I was on the low-carb cruise. Much more excited. I'm actually excited to get going with it because I know on the flip side of all this is going to be a version of myself that I've always wanted, but didn't feel like I had the time or the ability or the anything to see. Well, now I'm getting that chance and I'm taking this extremely seriously.
Yeah, that's what you were out of the room when I said more is not better unless it's Jimmy Moore on the conference. But we have that philosophy, right? That more is better. And we just, to acknowledge that less is more is going to be more productive and more healing and therapeutic for the whole you. That I think is such a hard mentality, being that driven person you are, to know it's okay and give that yourself permission to stop, pause and reset, take a 5-minute breathing exercise or, just slow down a little bit. And that's not, as I said before, being lazy and, you're not having that drive anymore, but it's actually the opposite.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what are you going to do when you're there to stay offline? Like, have you figured out strategies? You said you're going to be off social media and you're on there a lot every day. How are you kind of weaning yourself off now? And how are you going to stay off? Because Christine's working. How's that going to work?
No. I'm deleting the apps off my phone. I won't even be able to have access to anything. And in fact, I'm taking it even one step further. I've been thinking this through. Okay, I'm going to commit to 6 months. This is a very valuable investment as I'm seeing this. I'm going to take it to the extreme, I think. I am going to not watch any NFL football, and I'm a diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. It will suck if Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl this year. They won't, but if they did, I would be really disappointed because I'm not even going to engage in that. And people are like, well, why not? That's kind of fun. But you kind of put your body through emotional stuff, cheering and, oh, I'm sad. And people don't realize that's stress too, even though it's kind of stupid, mindless, happy stress. It's still stress. And so I'm all in on this, Debbie. I don't want to trigger anything that would do anything but a positive thing in my body while I'm away.
Mm-hmm. So living in the woods will help, and being just with family and friends and getting rid of those toxic energy robbers, so those vampires. So for you, have you identified what kind of sucks the energy out of you and makes you feel stressed out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just the day-to-day-ism of being a famous person online. Mm-hmm. And so by totally disconnecting, I'm no longer stimulated by that in a negative way anymore. So that's kind of cool. It's like, okay, I won't be exposed to the thing that I think was the instigator in weight gain and adrenal stuff and everything that's happened. So that's my theory. Eliminate that stressor and things should calm down. And just the mere response of slowing down and having a bit of a different perspective on life now than I had even 4 months ago, 3-4 months ago, has already reaped benefits. Why wouldn't completely going away and completely disconnecting from it all do even more? Yeah,
I agree. I believe that. So any lab testing you're going to do before and after? And are you just going to supplementation?
Oh, no. Yeah. So I hired a functional medicine medical doctor right up the road from me, about an hour away. And he's super into keto and biohacking. So he's my people. So he ran a whole bunch of labs on me, which I'm sharing about on my podcast, my various podcasts before I leave. So definitely go listen to my podcasts today on the Keto Hacking MD podcast. We're going over them, and then I'll have Keto Talk, my functional medicine practitioner co-host, Dr. Will Cole. We'll go over them, and then I'm sharing my visit that I had with my doctor on the Livin, Vida, Low-Carb show the week I'm gone. So across all my platforms, people will hear all about where I stand. And here's the thing, and it shouldn't surprise anybody, I got pretty good health in various areas. Nutritionally, you can have great labs, even if you have extra weight on the body. You can still have some pretty great labs. And I did some really interesting findings. But then there was really bad stuff, and mostly in the inflammatory pathways, which is not surprising. It's all related to the adrenal, the stress. It all will affect those inflammatory pathways, which, if left unresolved, turn into chronic disease. So I'm hedging that by going away. And when I come back, yes, I'm going to run all those exact same tests again. And hopefully that inflammation is next to nothing.
So are you doing supplementation at all for your, like, antioxidants, mitochondria, digestive enzymes,
Right.
HCl? Do you do all that?
Right. So I do have a nutritional therapy practitioner wife, Christine. So yeah, she's got me on several things. Plus the functional medicine doctor has got me on some adrenal type kind of supplementation. We're also doing peptides. Both Christine and I are both using peptides, and obviously targeted to our specific needs. So yeah, we're doing all those things. It's kind of an exciting emerging area that people just think supplement, it's just a multivitamin. It goes so much deeper than multivitamin.
I know.
And so I'm very thankful Christine has that nutritional therapy background, and her knowledge there is definitely helping in this arena.
Yeah, I really find learning, everything we learn in nutritional therapy as a practitioner, but also researching about mitochondria dysfunction with chronic fatigue, because it's not just adrenals, it's the HPA axis, but also looking at our genetics and our ability to deal with stress is really fascinating to me. And then mitochondria dysfunction, because I find, for me, is chronic exercise and chronic stress and doing all that stuff, it really impacts your energy production from your mitochondria. And that research, I think, is fascinating to put all together, as well as what you're doing with your fasting and doing keto carnivore. So talk a little bit about nutritionally. You just did another 5-day fast.
Yeah, I ended up only getting to 3. I do listen to my body when I fast. And I had speaking of stress, I had a few highs and lows on that day 3. It was intended to be a 7-day fast, but day 3, I had something pretty devastating happen, and I had something pretty exciting happen. And both ends of that create stress, good and bad. And I was hungry for an hour and a half straight. And I started getting dizzy, which is hypoglycemia. So I ended the fast wisely. Yeah, I mean, that kind of thing I will incorporate within this as well. The fun part of being fat adapted, keto adapted, is that it becomes so easy. I can almost fast for 3 days in my sleep. That's how easy it is once you're fat adapted and you're just so well adept at using those ketones efficiently. But yeah, I'm a big believer in pushing that envelope. I'm wearing a Freestyle Libre right now that kind of lets me track my blood sugar in real time. And so, yeah, all those things are still going to be a part of who and what I am, even during the sabbatical.
So have you noticed all your stuff you've been doing for your health with your stress and the response with your stress with the glucose continuous monitor and fasting and being fat adapted and burning fat? Because if you have you lost all your YouTube videos for a week or so, do you notice your numbers change because of the chronic stress is going to raise your blood sugar up to respond to that emergency threat?
Yeah, great points, by the way. And yeah, with this traumatic thing that happened the other day that made me end the fast, I was like, whoa, I saw it in the glucose before I even felt it in the body. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I think I'm learning to get better at this, Debbie. And so that's helping, that circumstances should not impact my reaction. My reaction should be always who and what I am without having to let the circumstances dictate it. And this is a hard lesson for me because I am someone who wears my feelings on my shoulder. And my heart is out. I don't hide my emotions, and I'm trying to get better at not showing emotion, but in showing the emotion, not letting it overtake me. And that's a real challenge for people that feel.
Mm-hmm. But it's everything's that Goldilocks effect, right? Not too much, not too little. Because if you hold it in too much, that's also building internal stress and trauma. Right. So it's being able to share your emotions, but not hold them in or not share them too much that you're, one way or the other. It's like always the right amount before the tipping point.
Exactly. And that balance is so tricky because it's very easy to fall into, like you said, one extreme or the other. And the middle ground can sometimes be uncomfortable. This is the thing too. People want to feel everything or they want to feel nothing. It's really hard to feel a little, but not feel it fully. And that's something that I'm trying to get better at. I want to feel fully when people are showing gratitude and are being truly thankful for the impact you've had. I want to feel a little of the people that aren't so much that way. Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel nothing because if I become cold, then I think you're right. You kind of hold that in and it just you lose who you are. And I think I would lose a whole lot of who Jimmy Moore is if I felt nothing.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. That's who you are. You're known for the Jimmy Moore that gives amazing hugs.
Well, the hugs ain't going anywhere. I will always hug.
So one last kind of random question. Do you use essential oils at all that we learned a lot in nutritional therapy?
Oh, girl, I love me some essential oils. In fact, several years ago, I got convicted partially because I got a toxicity screening back, and it showed I was like super duper high in aluminum. And I'm like, where in the world did I get aluminum from? And it turns out my underarm deodorant was just loading me up with aluminum. And I was putting it literally on my skin every day and it was absorbing right in there and left unresolved. That would have caused some pretty major issues. So we switched over to all essential oils and natural based type things like that. We got rid of our air fresheners and we use them for, air freshener now. It's now my cologne. I haven't worn traditional cologne in probably 3 years. Mm-hmm. No, I'm a big fan. Peppermint is my absolute favorite. I get such relaxation from using peppermint. I also like the, not to use a name brand, but the Thieves from Young Living. Yeah. But really any of those kind of cinnamony, clovey type of ones. That makes a nice, manly, masculine cologne.
I've found the essential oils for stimulating the parasympathetic nervous system is beneficial too, like applying it on your vagal nerve and just doing some breathing exercises. I'll have people do that before the infrared sauna, especially if they just exercise. I'm like, you're all sympathetic right now. We got to shift over to parasympathetic. But I think to people that are high strung and just always on the go, doing essential oils that help stimulate parasympathetic is pretty good secret biohack.
Oh, absolutely. And I test HRV as well. And you can see that HRV come right into line into that parasympathetic state. It's almost too much. Sometimes it goes in the other direction, but I'd rather be super chill than super stressed.
Yes. Well, I know we're running out of time, but Jimmy, kind of leave us with some big tips for other people, big major things that you have learned, lessons learned through this journey, and kind of what do you want to happen in the next year? What's your dream?
So lessons learned that I want to impart on other people. Don't wait too late before you do something about what we've talked about here today. I'm having to take a drastic action of going away for 6 months, which I'm very privileged to be able to have the resources to be able to just do that. I know everybody can't just uproot out of their lives for 6 months and expect to fall safely back 6 months from now. So I'm not taking this lightly, but that means in the day-to-day-ism, take stock. Just take that hour a day. If it's, 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever time fits within your schedule, just make sure you prioritize taking stock in you because you're that important. And it's so easy to think, okay, who am I? I'm not anybody special, but don't devalue yourself. Know that you are valuable to kids, to coworkers, to other family members. You're important to somebody. So take that time, even in the day-to-day-ism, to take care of you. Now, as far as what I want to see in the next year, what I would absolutely love to see, Debbie, is a whole lot more kindness towards one another.
Yes, for sure.
There is such ugliness, and we're about to enter over this next year a presidential election season, which I am just not looking forward to 2020 at all. Because if it's anything like 2016 was, which was extremely ugly, I mean, family members, friends, people just don't know how to act right with one another online. And I think the way you counter that is you are just super duper over the top, kind, loving, compassionate, literally every inkling of you that wants to be ugly towards another human, flip it. Be incredibly kind, incredibly giving. Just show the kind of human decency that used to be commonplace. I think that's how we change this narrative of how we talk to each other, and it lowers stress. To kind of bring it full circle with what we've talked about here today, it puts you in that parasympathetic state. And unfortunately, people like to live in the sympathetic state, and that has consequences. So be a part of an agent of change for the better, not for the worse.
Amazing tips. Everyone should learn, take care of the whole you, and slow down, pause, and reset more often during the day before it's too late. And that's what your message is and what mine has been. And, my goal is to help do this more of a full-time job to get this message out as well while you're on your sabbatical. But, I had this happen since 2013, and it's just until this year identifying, some major stressors for me, owning my own business for one, and just learning more how to slow down. It's taken me a long time. And so I think it's, what you're doing is similar, that we have to spread this message out and get other people to start taking care of themselves now before they have to take 6 months off and, quit their job so they can figure out how to get healthy. Because,
Right.
You want to be living life to its fullest as we go to the end of life. So I think it's something we should take more seriously.
Yeah, live life. Don't let it live you.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time today. And I look forward to hearing your journey, and hopefully you just stay off on your new lifestyle until we have the cruise next May. Maybe that makes your good timing to just come back then.
Hey, who knows? I'm certainly open to letting what's happening happen. And if, 6 months in, Debbie, I don't feel it yet, Jimmy Moore is self-aware to know that he's going to stay away a little while longer. Everybody thinks, and Christine included, my wife Christine thinks I'm going to be chomping at the bit by March. So I might be, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I say, life is not a race. It is a journey. So enjoy the ride.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Jimmy. Why don't you share which podcast people can keep listening to over the next year until you start back up?
Yeah. So while I'm away, my flagship show, the Livin, Vida, Low-Carb show, which has had Debbie Potts on before, will continue, and we will have repeat episodes. Obviously, I won't be around. It'll have a few of my Jimmy rants. It'll have some classic episodes. I've done over 1,500 episodes of that show. So literally, Debbie, if all you did was listen to my podcast 24/7, 181 days, you still wouldn't get through all my content. So my voice will carry on even when I'm not here.
Exactly. That's great. So you guys, I'm sure we all support you in your journey and the lessons learned. Hope everyone pays attention and maybe listen to this podcast a few times, because it's what I've been saying, and we need to hear it from a few other people to create that impact, because it's like you got to hear it 10 times or 20 times before it hits you in the head. So thank you for sharing your message.
Hey, Debbie, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. I don't really get to talk about this aspect. Everybody wants to hear keto and fasting and cholesterol, but this is becoming my heart. And who knows, if I figure out the stress piece, maybe there's a book in this someday.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. All right. Enjoy.
Thanks for listening to the Whole Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at wholeathletepodcast.com. You can help us continue and grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and see you next time.